read it there. This is Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial. Well, we've got it all. We've got legislatures, executive, judicial. That takes care of all three branches of government at every level, from cities all the way up to the White House. All three branches have the same purpose and goal. To do what? Well, let's read on. Both of the United States and of the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the President of the United States and all his officers. To support this Constitution. So all three branches of government have one goal, and that is to preserve the Constitution. Does he work for the judge? No. Does he work for the legislature? No. Can you ever tell the judge or legislature no? I'm sure he already has several times. He's telling one big one right now no. But we don't work for Washington. That's nothing. But sometimes I told the judge and the legislature no. We don't work for them. Sometimes we work with them, and you want to work with them, and you have to. But sometimes you even tell them no. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit too. Okay? He works and answers to his boss. We, the people of this county. That's it. That's it. He doesn't have any other boss. Well, his wife. Next one. Now look, Madison and Jefferson both talked about this nullification stuff way back in 1775 when they wrote the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. I love what they said in here. They used the word, specifically Madison, used the word interpose. And let's read right there, that the state's legislature is duty-bound. Now, would the county legislature be duty-bound? And would the city legislature be duty-bound? And would the sheriff be duty-bound? Yes. To do what? To interpose their power to prevent the federal government from victimizing its people. Did Madison and Jefferson think that that might happen sometime after this all was there? Yes, of course. They knew the tendency of people to grab power and to be lustful for power. You know, probably one of the biggest examples of that, if you want to know somebody who just lusts for power, I'm going to stick my neck out and say, maybe you've watched Hillary Clinton in action. That is a person who lusts for power. Okay? There. Okay? Now, interpose. That is a doctrine that's been around for a long time. That the sheriff, that the county commission, that the governor, the state reps, the city council would interpose on behalf of the people. Which means, even if it costs me my life, I will interpose for you. Hopefully that won't come to that. But even if it costs me my job, I will interpose for you. Can you imagine the other one on that? And we hear this sometimes, don't we, Sheriff? Oh man, I better not do this. I might take some heat. I could lose my job. I'm not going to stand. I'm not going to defend you. I'm not going to interpose for you. I could lose the next election. They might cut off funding. Oh no. Folks, do you really respect somebody who's going to tell you, I'm not going to keep my oath, I'm not going to stand for freedom, and I'm not going to stand for your individual liberty because I might lose my job? No. They're doing it for a paycheck? We have enough political prostitutes in Washington. We don't need any here in Texas. We've got enough of them in Austin. We don't need any more out here in the rural parts of the country that believe in freedom. No, we're not going to do that. Your job be damned. Stand for what's right and do what's right and move on. There's other jobs, but there's not more freedom. There's not another constitution. Only the one that we have now that's under extreme attack by our own officials. Okay? Our own leaders. Next one. This is Judge Roll. Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath. A judge, a federal judge, actually talking about the oath of office. In one sentence, he summarizes why I did this lawsuit. Mack is forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the law. subjecting himself to possible sanctions. Judge Roll was incensed by the threat of arrest leveled at us, and that I was put into this position by my own government. He was right. Now what about the rest of all our public officials? Shouldn't they see this? This is one part in this little book. It's on page 2 that I put the quote from Judge Roll. That one. Let me make sure that I said the right quote. Yeah, page 2. Judge Roll's quote is in here. Because this is exactly what I believe every cop and every public official will have to reconcile in the first few weeks of being in your job, maybe even sooner, and maybe even on a daily basis. If you have to choose between your oath or obeying a bad law, a law that violates the freedom and principles that is guaranteed in the Constitution or is guaranteed in the Bible, which one are you going to do? You're going to side with the people? You're going to side with your oath and keep your word? Or are you going to side with vapid politicians? Are you going to, if the president or Congress or somebody here in your state enacts laws or supports legislation that is completely contrary to the principles of American ideals and our Constitution, does that bestow any responsibility on us to go along? Quite the opposite. It gives you a duty to stand against it. And you must, because you promised to do just that when you took your oath. And that's all this is talking about. I told you I didn't make this up. Judge Roll did. What a great man he was. Next one. This is the threat of arrest. I told you I didn't make this up. Under a separate provision of the Gun Control Act, any person who knowingly violates the section of the Gun Control Act amended by the Brady Bill shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for no more than 1 year or both. Now, they tried to soften this and they said, when we filed on this and we filed an injunction, my attorney says, hey, do you want to do something kind of fun? I said, we want more fun? And he goes, why don't we file an injunction against the federal government from arresting you? And I said, could we get it? And he goes, I think Judge Roll will give it to us. And so we're now filing an injunction against the Justice Department and the Clinton administration from being able to arrest me until we're done in court. And Janet Reno wrote a memo to the judge saying, oh, well, we didn't mean that, and Congress didn't mean that rule right there for the sheriffs, but just for the FFLs, the gun shops. And Judge Roll told her, Ms. Reno, he wrote back to her and said this in his ruling, you're not allowed to interpret the law for Congress, and you're not allowed to change the law just because you write a memo.